Welcome to episode 17 of the Library Tech Cast. We have our special guest today, Michael Schofield, with us, and my name is Jeff Sable, reference and instruction librarian at Concordia University, and all-around tech guru for the library, which is not saying much. I'll throw it over to my co-host Riley Childs, and he'll introduce himself.
Hello, my name is Riley Childs. I am the IT guy and library manager and library technologies guy at Charlotte United Christian Academy. I manage their library and am just trying to get their library into the 21st century, and also manage the school's network and do all that fun stuff there. And I'm also a student there. I have a lot on my plate. But our special guest, Michael Schofield, take it away. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hey, I'm Michael Schofield. I'm the front end librarian at the Sherman Library in Fort Lauderdale, where it's presently 70 degrees. So
You're lucky.
yeah,
It's ridiculously cold here. Um, very
I
cold.
take every opportunity to like rub it in, so I'm like, oh, burr, it's 65 degrees, 2 in the morning. So,
Okay. But yeah, I mean, let's go ahead. Let's just scoot on in to our fantastic show. The first thing that we want to discuss is a while back we talked about makerspaces in libraries, and the Toronto Public Library is actually starting to have such things in libraries. And I mean, they're gonna get the whole 3D printer technology. Sorry that I'm turning to the left there. And they're gonna have a MakerBot, and it's sounds pretty cool. And I'm excited because I'm starting to.
oh, did you freeze up?
Yeah, I think he did. I don't know. Have you ever actually used a 3D printer?
Yeah, I have. They they're really cool. And I like I'm very much behind their I guess the reason for being, especially in libraries, that they're migrating us away from this repository commodity-based institution to a place where the community can come in and create. I like that. The 3D printers I've used aren't weren't too hardcore. Like we made plastic whistles and stuff out of it, but they're getting better, and it's been a while, and you can make everything. I really like the idea that on the on the article that we were reading, or that it's linked to, um, it suggests um, use for if you come in because you've like broken or you lost your iPhone case, or like the back of a remote, things like this that in the past that you just have to deal with. Or I'm thinking especially about the remote. You might like tape it up to keep the batteries in there. Um,
Yeah. There was
put their attention. I don't think there's been a library example so far. There hasn't been many. I don't think there's been an example where a library has gotten a makerspace and they regret it.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a really good rate of review. You know.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And I mean, and you hear so many success stories of people, you know, creating like art installations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's pretty amazing to see what different people they draw besides, you know, the I guess typical library user who's basically there to get, you know, check out their books and go home.
Right. Welcome back.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, sorry about that. I have what is arguably called the best school-issued laptop, but it overheats. Bad.
Bummer.
And it turns off. Sorry.
Yeah, so do you have anything to add, Riley, about, we were just talking about makerspaces in general and sort of how, you know, that's going to be a component of the future of libraries. And Michael was saying how not one has really, a library has regretted it or opened a makerspace and where it failed miserably, where it didn't engage, I guess, the community.
I honestly don't ever. I mean, the only thing that I could see where a makerspace could hurt a library if they don't try it. Because, I mean, worst case scenario, it doesn't work. I mean, the program might cost a little pricey, maybe $10,000, but I mean, to get started, and maybe not even that. I mean, it depends on where you get going. Try getting some cheap LEDs and some stuff in a soldering iron from Radio Shack. Teach some people how to solder. I mean, spend $100 there. See if people are interested. Can't hurt. So
Absolutely.
yeah. Yes.
So moving on, the next the iPads, more LA iPad news.
Those. So the committee, the oversight. I'm sorry. So the oversight committee that is over this thing, they've disbanded, and the reasoning for this is that it's redundant because the superintendent already has oversight. Any thoughts on that? I mean, I don't see.
I'm trying to figure out. I'm just trying to catch up. I'm trying to figure out how this is, like, what this actually means. What was the purpose of the Watchdog Committee before?
To provide oversight, and I guess to examine it, but all out of the blue, they just disbanded it. Like, I mean, it just all of a sudden went away. And the reasoning that was given was because they feel that it's an additional layer of redundancy, which I can understand if the oversight was coming directly from the school board, which it kind of is, but their reasoning was that the oversight is coming directly from the superintendent.
I mean, I think this is going to.
And I think that this is just going to. I think there was something bad.
Yeah, you probably don't know this, but your mic is cutting out in really funny ways.
Did you go away?
Yeah, it just like froze up. All we got was that you think this is bad.
Yeah. I need to.
My prediction is eventually. I mean, this is basically just a stop measure before there's going to be some kind of investigation. Is my prediction, which was my prediction last week, that it's going to come out that there was some kind of bribery or someone's going to be indicted or something. Just because it's just been such a miserable failure. The head technology officer resigned immediately once they began investigating this debacle, and yeah, I mean, I think it's just going to turn into a huge story of corruption and iPads in the classroom. So, anybody else have anything to add? We can move on to the next.
No, that's all I got. I don't have anything to add.
Yeah, so we want to move on. The RFID and libraries.
Yeah. Next.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm just saying this is cool. I'm excited for this one. So. Yep. Did he freeze up again?
Riley?
Yeah. Go ahead, Jeff.
Oh yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
oh, yeah? Do you hear me?
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to call Logitech about this. I'm not happy. Okay, but hopefully you can still hear me. Am I cutting out? Okay, if
Nope,
I'm
not
not
now.
cutting out,
You're good.
let me just kind of explain what this is all about. Okay, cool. Back. So the Rochester Public Library is in the process of putting RFID tags on all of their DVDs and CDs and Blu-ray discs and all that stuff, and then eventually they're going to start to move on to the books. And their ultimate goal is to, by the end of 2015, is to have all 430,000 books in the library available with RFID tags. And it says that the total cost of this is about $200,000, which actually doesn't sound too pricey. I'm not sure about either of you, but I mean, depending on the size, I mean, a public library that size, that doesn't sound too bad. I mean, that's 50 cents a book.
Yeah, I think it's a huge upfront cost. I mean, where you figure you already have some kind of security system in place, but if you look at how much loss prevention, how much convenience that these contribute, I do think it's relatively inexpensive. If you sort of space it out, if you have zero missing books after 10 years, um, it probably you make an argument that it pays for itself.
Yeah.
I agree. I think this is You're right. It seems pricey to me, but I think this is also going to have a couple things that might be harder to measure. One, you're going to it's part of it's an investment in the user experience, and people think about it. A lot of people, there's sometimes a rare anecdotal person who really likes to engage with the person at the counter. I'm certainly not one of them. It's just like when I shop, if there is a self-checkout line, I will self-checkout. If I don't even have to check out, if I could just walk through a scanner, I'd much prefer it. The other thing is that the more secure they feel in that they're going to prevent loss, hopefully the more unique things they can circulate. Thinking about tool libraries or like hard software and stuff like, or even machines. I think if they only use it just like for their books and they don't use it to take a chance, then it'll be silly. But I think it's cool. I think there's a really neat future in RFIDs. I don't know if I foresee this, but I'm really amused by the idea of at some point everything has an RFID. You no longer need cataloging, or you no longer need like shelving protocols. Like you could just put something on a shelf, and then this is far future, maybe not too far future, but then you're looking for an item and it tells you where it is and where it is in proximity to you. This is something that Cory Doctorow, I think, first wrote about. I'm sure he didn't first write about it, but in his book Makers, where they just had a bunch of tub and they had a bunch of all this stuff. Think about maker spaces, and you might have, or hacker spaces, and you have all this crap. You have like random tools. You have how are you going to catalog a casing for like a computer that you just picked up, right? You could just throw it into tubs, and then you could whatever you're looking for, you locate. Maybe the tub blinks blue or something to show you where it is. I think there's a lot of future neatness to this. That's how That's how I prefer to think of things, because right now the present isn't that interesting. But
But I mean, there's already even been programs where there's geolocation like within the building, within 10 feet of like RFID book. So basically, on your phone, you could look up a book and it'll direct you right there within 10 feet. So, I mean, it's not perfect yet, but I think it's getting a lot. Like you said, like the future would be, you do really need cataloging schemes to catalog, to place books on shelves when you have something that'll tell you, if you get within a foot maybe, then it's almost impossible not to find the book.
Well, one of the other things is this would also have a big impact behind the scenes, because one of the things that I think David Singleton mentioned last week was about how rather than having the books sit in a book drop overnight, think about if I put a book in that book drop, it could, when it hits the bottom of that book drop, it could theoretically be check itself in, and then that means that, I mean that alleviates one step of the process, and that allows the book to get onto the shelf faster. I know sliding a book under a scanner is only a couple of seconds, but multiply that by a whole bunch of books, you can have that entire bin of books on the shelves.
Yeah, it'll streamline a lot of processes. And I mean, he was even talking about how if you have 5 books in your backpack and you have your library card on you, if they all have RFID, when you walk out, it'll automatically check them out to you.
Yeah.
Right.
Which, I mean, and that's just making the user experience more convenient and I think, I mean, in my opinion, my humble opinion, more pleasurable because you don't really have to sit in line. Well, I mean, if you go to downtown LA Library to LA Public downtown, you're sitting in line if you're not using the self-checkout. I mean, and maybe for 10, 15 minutes just because they're sitting online.
Yeah, I mean, and not only that, it's just it was just kind of neat to be able to have it like a speed pass, just be able to put your card on the thing, even check your books out. And the main reason they gave in this article is that they wanted to move is for patron convenience, is because what was happening is at their self checks and the books weren't scanning properly, and the patrons didn't know how to use the barcode scanner. So you might run into a situation where the book doesn't get checked out or something like that, and that saves on lost items, like you were saying. But yeah, I mean, it's just going to be interesting to see how that goes going forward. And on something that ended up and moving on, any last thoughts on that, anyone?
No.
Okay.
Now let's move on.
Okay, move it on. Something that is near and dear to the service that is near and dear to everyone's hearts, known as Overdrive, is moving to DRM MP3s. I think it's not quite. Did I read that right? It's not quite DRM free.
So Boing Boing got really excited, and I think we all got excited. I certainly got excited because I shared it everywhere. I was like, yay! But basically, what they're doing is they're getting away of like Windows format phones, like the WMA files, the Zune files, things like that. And they're going purely for MP3s, which some of the other people I was talking to mentioned that wow, good for them on finally figuring out that these non-MP3 file formats weren't ever being used. I think that's what happened, because the idea is that you can sit and you can stream an audiobook while you sit at your computer. That's it's less likely to happen than download it to your phone or whatever. But the DRM is still there. The DRM is not at the, I guess what I'd call like the file level. The MP3 is you can make a local copy of it and nothing will happen. But as long as you're adhering to the terms of service, and you have like the Overdrive client open, it will, once the checkup period is over, it'll still prompt you to delete all the files. But it's certainly a lot easier to steal the files, and I'm sure I'll do it. But basically the headline was a lot more exciting than I think the reality is. And Overdrive actually tweeted at Boing Boing, and they're like, "Hey Boing Boing," it was like, actually Overdrive still has DRM, and they seemed really proud of it. I'll hook you guys up with the actual tweet when I pull it up. But it's a big really hullabaloo about nothing. Basically, the result is they're getting rid of the WMA file format. So any of you out there using WMA file formats, sorry, too bad.
But I mean, who's still using that except for the sample videos that come with? Actually, no, those are MP4s. The sample videos that come with the sample sounds that come with Windows, those are actually MP3s.
I don't know. I certainly never use it. I never have. It's like those services. Open up. You can read the audiobook through Adobe.
Oh
Adobe
yeah.
something. You can read it on your screen, or
Who's gonna do that
I,
though?
I don't know. I guess if you're desperate, or if you really like to sit at your computer and read, but that's
I
an
remember I
backache.
remember the early days of this stuff when I thought I was cool, and I mean like 2006, and I was sitting at my computer reading my algebra book, or reading my whatever book from Overdrive, and I was like 7.
Right, right.
I mean,
I thought I
I
was
do read some like technical books at work that I have in, like, I think it's Adobe Digital Editions or something.
Yeah,
That
that's what the
yeah,
program is here.
yeah, and I mean I don't mind it really. I mean, but I mean I'm not going to sit there and read a novel at my computer.
it
I think
ruins.
reading on your screen is a lot more likely than listening to like a full audiobook on your screen. If you think about
Yeah,
like, oh, I want to pick up where I left off, you have to go to your computer to do that. Maybe that was true like when Overdrive first came out, but I think now, you know, we
yeah,
got phones that can do
Right.
this for
Yeah.
us. You know, we
Right.
can walk around and do it. Um,
yeah. But yeah, I
but
mean,
congratulations to Overdrive for being a little less douchey, I guess. Um,
there-
but it's maybe plus half a point toward the copy fight. But I don't think anything's changed a whole lot.
we still have the fact that they still have the fact that each audiobook you buy is considered an individual book and all that
Sure.
good stuff there. And we're gonna need to work on that Overdrive, but you're getting there.
I think we could dedicate a whole show to like the vendor licenses.
Yeah,
Overdrive can and does. Let's be honest, screw libraries because there really isn't competition. I mean, there's more of Overdrive-like companies coming out, but um, you
Well, I
know,
mean they captured 99% of the market. I mean, a public
sure.
library.
And you know what? The what's in their bag is that people, at least people at our place, love it. So all the concerns that librarians have, and the fact that it's costing libraries a lot of money, and there's no like first use doctrine because you don't own these, and so you can't, you have to buy repurchase a license to circulate over a certain amount of times. Users don't really care because they're like, hey, I can just pull this down on my Kindle, yay. And that's kind of a big boon in Overdrive's hands. The San Rafael library, run by the director is Sarah Houghton, the librarian in black. They do something cool. I think more libraries should do it. This is my little bit of soapbox, and I'm gonna get off. They make it so that when you click onto Overdrive, there's a pop-up on the website that says, "Yo, all that." I'm sure it's not like "Yo," but it's like, "Yo, all that." All the concern that libraries have about like your privacy and like how much we care about you. I'm sure it doesn't say that. It's basically saying like, hey, you're going off to a corporation site and they're not going to protect your privacy. They're gonna like data mine this. And the circumstances that they put us in aren't all that great. You should know this before you use them. And
kind of
whatever.
like
It's interesting. It's just like a little PSA before you go off to. It's like, hey, it's like, you know what you're actually doing when you go to Walmart to buy groceries? People are just looking to do
Kinda-
it, but
kind of like the federal government sites. Every time you leave,
Sure.
like you go to whitehouse.gov, you get a little pop-up that says, "Hey, sure you want to leave?"
But
Um,
I think the average library patron has no idea how much Overdrive is costing, or how much market share they have, or how much they're screwing libraries out of the patrons' tax money that they paid into it.
sure.
And yeah, I mean I think I mean it's gotta enlighten somebody to sort of take some sort of action, or at least be educated to what Overdrive essentially is.
yes, and we are slowly and surely getting there. Any last comments anyone have anything else before we start to move on? Before we move on to our next topic, anything else? Are you good?
One more thing is like Douglas County libraries. They went with Odilio TID. They partnered with them to actually purchase their own e-books. So I think they're out from Overdrive. And actually, they were saying a lot of times they're trying to take these books with them when they have licenses that where they actually purchased them. And they said that actually Overdrive, I think one library had some that they actually purchased, and they said that Overdrive actually gave them the ebooks to take with them
Oh, wow.
to the new platform. I'm sure it was a small percentage, and I mean, once this library district committed to it, I'm sure they sort of knew they were going to be leaving. But that's sort of, I mean, and then they're trying to base their model on where they purchased the books, and they're a pretty big library district, so they have some sort of bargaining power. But they're sort of trying to break from Overdrive's evil clutches, I should say.
Okay then. Well, before we move on to our other next news topic, I just kind of wanted to give a shout out to DigitalOcean. We run on them. They're fantastic virtual private server provider. For $5 a month, you get 512 megabytes of internet cloud awesomeness. And we actually have a special little deal that we can hook you up with. If you go to librarytechcast.com/DigitalOcean, sign up for an account. That just lets them know that we sent you. And then if you go slide into their cloud panel, click on billing, all the way down at the bottom, or it's billing, manage payments. I'll post a little link on the show notes about how to get there. All the way down at the bottom, it has a space where you can put in a promo code. And that promo code you should put in is SSD2014. And that gives you $10. A $10 credit. You don't have to put in a credit card. No, it's basically no strings attached. Just a great way to help support us, pay for our web hosting.
And if you're interested in like something like an open source like Koha, that's a great way to sort of install it and check it out.
Yeah, there's actually a great guide written by yours truly on their community, all about how to install Koha on one of their VPSs. And I mean, you don't really have anything to lose. Just go ahead, check it out using our link, because we get credit for that because we sent you. But I mean, that would just be great to help us out. But that's enough, I guess, for now. Moving on to our final topic: HTML DRM, 5 DRM, and Michael, I'm sure you have some very interesting comments on this.
I do. Thank you. Thank you for the.
Yeah.
Thank you for the intro.
And I mean,
He's your hype man.
I mean, this is one of the. I'm sorry. It's just you're the one who put this in, and I mean, I had no idea. I'm sure like no one had any idea.
So I've been kind of I've been talking about this for like the last couple of weeks, and I'm sure ad nauseum. But the reason that I threw it in there is precisely because that there's this vacuum. Librarians are especially, I mean, we have a logo, Librarians Against DRM. There are people who have this tattooed on them, right? This is a mantra of what librarians largely stand against. And a lot of people don't realize that there's this that DRM is already in the process of coming into the native browser level. So what happened is I believe it was like October, I think it was in October 2012, Tim Berners-Lee, the creator of the internet, and the W3C, the standards body for HTML5, and what they did is they proposed something in addition, an extension to HTML5 called the Encrypted Media Extension, and this is at the pressure of companies that someone called the Hollyweb. It's Hollywood and the web. I love that term, but the idea that it's like, think of it like Netflix, and right now when you want to stream Netflix in your browser, you have to download Microsoft Silverlight. I don't even think it's Flash. Other companies that want to lock down their content are using Flash. So they go to the W3C and they say, hey, don't want to be beholden to these third-party plugins anymore. HTML5 is already getting away from Flash. It's you can do what you used to be able to do in Flash. You can pretty much do with like CSS3 and JavaScript. We no longer want to have to force people to download Silverlight. We don't want to be beholden to these other companies like Adobe and Microsoft. There should be a spec in HTML5 that lets us do it. And the W3C says, they say, well, why? Why should we? And the HollyWeb says, well, because if you don't, we are going to take our content, our streaming video, elsewhere. Well, the W3C took that bait. What's funny is like, where are they going to go? They're going to leave the internet.
Right.
They took that bait. I think it's bait. Like there are a lot of people who think it's a good thing. But what the encrypted media extension does is create a native browser-level JavaScript API that essentially communicates with something else. Sorry if this is getting too technical. It's called the EME is just an API that communicates with another part of software or of the spec called CDM, the Content Decryption Module. And that's something else that lives in your browser or on your computer. And these things talk to each other to say, hey, does the EME says, hey, does this person have the right to watch this video from Netflix? And the CDM says, yes, here's the secret key. And it decrypts and you can watch your video. What's troubling, there's different things that I'm certainly troubled about, and you guys feel free to weigh in. The only way for DRM, or there's the first thing is that the W3C is an open standards body, right? There's nothing about the web that isn't open source. If there were to be a new, if somewhere out there in high school there is a young Tim Berners-Lee, and he's going to want to go and create his own browser, right? Or someone he's going to want to spin off something that's not Firefox or Chrome, something new. The way the DCMA, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act, or in Europe the EUCD, I'm not sure which one that stands for, but they make it illegal to violate DRM, to get around DRM. So the DRM licensing bodies make it so that if you want, what I was trying to say is basically so the W3C is an open standard, and there's nothing, and the DRM part of it is secret, necessarily secret, right? Because otherwise other people would just get around it. So the content, they don't define what the content decryption module is. It could be anything. It could be a piece of hardware. So for somebody who wants to be innovative and they create their own browser or whatever, they're going to have to enter agreements with DRM licensing bodies, probably pay a fee or whatever, because it's illegal to otherwise, without their permission, recreate the web to get around DRM. You can't make extensions to it. You can't change it. You can't learn about it.
That's stupid.
Yeah. So there's something that just kind of stomps innovation. The other thing that's really disturbing, that took me a long time to say that. So the other thing that's really disturbing is that for DRM to work, you need something native on your computer that you don't know about, monitoring your acceptable use of the files, right? So this is something right now that's in the HTML5 spec that is probably, it might be hardware, it might be like a USB you have to plug in, but probably not. It's probably going to be software that lives in your browser and monitors your acceptable use of the Netflix files, right? Before to monitor acceptable use of files, it has to monitor everything you do. And unlike Flash, unlike Silverlight, it's not something that you can opt out of. And I find that disturbing. I mean, you can opt out of, you can say, I'm not going to use Firefox, I'm not going to use Chrome, I'm not going to use Internet Explorer. The EME is already active in Internet Explorer 11, so if you opt out of the Internet, you can get around it. But
just turn off your computer.
Use Opera.
Yeah, it's disturbing, and there are arguments for it, because who wants third-party plugins, and other reasons. But really, just librarians, who are big proponents in the copy fight, they just don't know about it, So it's just something they should, because it's been around for a while, and it's and yeah, I'll let you guys talk. I'm off my soapbox now.
So there isn't doesn't seem like there's a campaign. I mean, you Google it, and there's only 3 articles on it. The first 3 Google results are it. I mean,
so the
there's
Electronic Frontier
Yeah, I mean, I
Foundation
was
is
in the
against
dark.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean the Electronic Frontier Foundation is trying to do that, or is trying to bring light to the issue. HTML5 Rocks, which creates the HTML5 boilerplate and all that, I think. Anyway, they posted a really great, very technical intro to the EME, like how you would actually use it in code. And they created a Google Doc that has tons of articles, pro and con. The thing is that unless you're a really nerdy, hardcore web guy, or you follow the EFF and everything they do, then yeah, I mean, it's not really anywhere else. I mean, it's in the web community, but even the web community, like the places you usually go to like learn how to do things. I don't want to like call anyone out, but there are websites that you go so you can learn how to do stuff like CSS and JavaScript, and there are people who talk about really interesting things like responsive images and these are important things for performance and the web, and they have huge audiences, and largely they're not even talking about it either, and it just baffles me. It seems like the actual community of the web would be more interested. So maybe it's just a fight that no one cares about, that I've just kind of gotten onto my horse.
Yeah, I mean, this
EFF,
is
yeah, I mean EFF cares about it, and a few other places do, but it's not like
Well,
it's
and
big
also
web,
I think if you ask the average person, do you want some program to monitor all your files on your computer? Most people would say they would not. I mean.
Sure,
But they're
but
not asking that.
I mean, it has to be complete ignorance, and they're trying to, once it's in every browser, then it's harder to protest it.
Because they're not asking that. They're asking, do you want to be able to watch Netflix in your web browser without Silverlight?
Right. Yeah.
So what's really troubling, and the reason I thought about, it just occurred to me one day. I was like, librarians aren't talking about this, but the other thing is that since the EME is well underway, the W3C is entertaining other parties, those being publishers, and we know them. They came and they said hey, if the HTML5 video and audio elements are going to have an API to lock down content, we should be able to do this with ebooks too, and we should we should lock down that. The funny thing about that is that essentially an ebook is just a website with no pictures, right? It's markup. It's a text file. So you're going to, I mean, it's possible with the JavaScript EME API that you could lock down an entire website. Now the arguments that when I've brought this up, the arguments are well, you don't have to use it. I mean, libraries certainly aren't going to lock down their websites with EME, or whatever. But there's going to be a lot of people that do. Google Chrome is certainly interested, and they don't want to. They'd love. Think about YouTube. I mean, this is certainly going to be a cornerstone of how YouTube operates. Well, you're not supposed to anyway, right? And they already have algorithmic, takedown, right? If it detects that you have music or some sort of copyrighted material, it'll pull your content down automatically. So that Google is certainly interested in this. And whatever, and okay, maybe it's just video sites, and yeah, they should be able to lock down their content, and that's true. But they're not going to be able to lock down their content without monitoring everything you do on your browser, And
I wouldn't be opposed to having. I'm honestly, as it stands for now, I'm not opposed to Microsoft Silverlight. Sure, it's another process that runs in my background, but it's only really active when the web browser is using it. Sure. I do not want something that I cannot opt out of.
The third-party plugin is totally opt-in, right? So you download it, you know what you're getting into. It has its own terms of service. So yeah, I'm with you. I mean, I'd rather use Flash or something.
And what does this mean for open source? Because the Chrome, whatever it is, I don't know, is never going to... The open source version of Google Chrome is never going to be able to implement this because, in theory, it's a closed door thing. It's not something that the algorithm
Correct.
is not something that you
Correct. So there's
open
another
source.
there's another open source browser called Firefox, right? They're they're really into the free open source software movement, and fundamentally, like the DRM,
It doesn't mesh.
Firefox has already like said that they're going to do this. Mozilla is back on it, and the reason I made that whole spiel at the beginning is because their exact reasoning was like, well, if we don't do this and people lose Netflix or whatever, we're going to lose a large market share to another browser. And okay, but that I agree, that completely undermines open source, because not only is it something that's secret about the code, about how it's implemented, right? But it's also it also kind of invalidates what you can do with the open source code, because like I said, like it is illegal in the DMCA and the EUCD, it is illegal to modify, tamper with, or do anything or disable DRM. And if you have an open source browser where DRM is a very fundamental part of its multimedia experience, you can't do anything without licensing agreements, right? Without at least signing a paper, which I'm sure someone's going to force you to pay for.
Well,
it makes it not open source.
Yeah, well, there's like people have opened. It looks like there's a few tickets open on the Mozilla bug track, the Mozilla track, and all of them all the comments in them have come down to the point where it's basically saying, I don't want this. It's DRM.
Right.
Yeah, and I mean, it's like if the community is telling you not to do it, and I understand about relevance, but Firefox is such a big browser that it's like, because I mean, at this point, it's like Google Chrome has 33%, Internet Explorer has more than that, and then Firefox has a big chunk as well. Firefox is still a big browser, and they don't want to alienate that, and the content providers wouldn't want to alienate. And if Firefox doesn't do it, I think that there's hope that the content, it's going to be there, but no one's really ever going to use it. And I think there's hope for that.
I guess I'm more cynical. I don't like I think about the Overdrive thing, right? I use Overdrive a lot. I'm a librarian. I hate DRM, but I also don't like reading like physical books that other people touched, right? So the fact that Overdrive is like screwing a library or whatever, when it comes to the point where I'm a consumer, I don't care. Like if I want to like watch a video with my 3-year-old on Netflix or something, like I'm going to do that in a browser that supports it, right? I also think that once the API is implemented, or whatever flavor comes to final version, I think you're going to see it everywhere. I think they're going to lock down audio. They're going to, like, for instance, like you do the Library TechCast podcast, and maybe you might let people download the MP3 file by itself. There's going to be podcasts that lock that down, so you have to subscribe through iTunes, or there's going to be all sorts of reasons to lock down content from access point A to force people through access point B. There was a great code example on CodePen, which just tried to mimic what copyright or what the EME might be potential might be, and it was just illustrating what the web might be like if you couldn't highlight text and copy it, right? And you can shut that down with like JavaScript and like CSS right now, but it's but think about it, it changes what the web is, So I don't know.
Ars Technica actually has a very in-depth article on it about how. Yeah, and what they're saying is that EME isn't the actual DRM. EME is rather the
what talks to it. Yeah.
What talks to it. So theoretically, you could implement this as an open standard, but the DRM is totally on the end of the content provider. So
that's the CDM. That's a content decryption module. So, and they said because they leave it unspecified, I mean, there's not a lot about it in the spec. it could. I mean, we're assuming it could be software that monitors. It's very likely it could be a piece of hardware. Like you have to go to the store and get like a Netflix
Kind of like
stub.
HDCP.
Yeah, yeah,
Like you had to have a even you still do. Like I couldn't run a DVI cable to any old monitor. It had to be HDCP compliant.
sure.
So it could
No,
be
but I
something
mean,
like
any chance a company has to make money, especially with the music industry losing money in such a substantial way. I mean, they're gonna fully exploit any technology that allows them to make more money.
yeah, and I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, there are still going to be rule breakers, and I mean,
The big point about the EFF, and like I guess I'm sure all of us can speak to it, is that when has DRM ever stopped you from copying something you wanted to copy, right?
Right.
Like how many audiobooks? I'm outing myself. How many audiobooks have I downloaded from Overdrive that are still on my computer? My big thing is that this could also be like a floodgate opening. So you enter one aspect into the W3C HTML5 spec that is not open. There will be more, So I mean, it's just you're handing the reins of control over to, like the W3C has been a good shepherd for essentially like the openness of the web, and I think they're giving it away. I think they're giving a part of that away. So it's a big deal, and there just should be a conversation about it, and there just isn't one.
and and like you said, it's the foot in the door at the HTML spec. It's just this one thing, but who knows? Maybe in a year, there's this great. We could do this, or we could do this, and before you know it, to get HTML is back to where it was in 1995 with Microsoft versus Netscape and the Internet Explorer bundling. And it's not going to be good. Not going to be fun. Yeah.
All right, let's wrap it up.
Yeah, anyone have anything they just want to plug really quickly before we go into our slow descent, rather quick descent, into the end? Michael, where can people find you on the interwebs?
Yeah, they can find me at nsforlib.com. They just Google front-end librarian. They Google the web and libraries. I'm pretty sure I'll pop up because that's just my stick. So.
Okay, and Jeff, where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter at LA Library Man, and you can I'm on the show every week.
Awesome, and you can find me on the internet. I'm RileyChilds.net. You can find all my social media stuff there, and I tweet a lot. I'm at Rowdy Children. And yeah, I mean, and where can you find the Library Tech Cast? Well, you can find us on the Twitter thing. We're at Library Tech Cast, Facebook.com/Library Tech Cast, and of course YouTube, YouTube.com/Library Tech Cast. And all those Wikiers things, people out there, if you would like to help us with our show notes, come check out the wiki.librarytechcast.com. Because I am not very, very good at keeping track of this stuff. So I'm going to give that my best shot this week. But just kind of help us out, wiki.librarytechcast.com. But for the Library Tech Cast, I'm Riley Childs.
I'm Jeff
He's
Sable.
Jeffrey Sable. And have a nice week.